All right, so maybe we go through the introductions. Spencer, you'll get to start.
I'm Spencer Dawkins. I'm one of the transport area directors.
I'm Benoit Claes, Ops and Management, Operation and Management, sorry.
Alyssa Cooper, Applications in Real Time.
Aaliyah Atlas, Routing.
Alvaro Ratana, Routing.
Mia Kulevin, Transport.
Terry Manderson, Interior.
Still Jari.
Ben Campbell, Application in Real Time.
I'm Andrew.
Suresh Krishnan, Internet.
Deborah Brungard, Routing Area.
Joel Yegley, Operations and Management.
Alexei Melnikov, Applications in Real Time.
Kathleen Moriarty, Security Area.
All right, so anybody has questions, I'd be happy to take them, or comments.
Pete Resnick. I hate being first. I hope I'll be last. Relatively quick. I didn't make the chair's lunch today, but I heard there was some discussion about different things that could be done for modes of meeting arrangements. And one that I like is the whole idea of doing squares or U's so that people are facing each other. I heard there were two complaints about that have been discussed, one of which was, well, we've offered it, but chairs haven't taken it. And the other is it would make for unfairness because some people would be at the table and some people would not be. To the first, you have steer in your name. People like doing things the way they've always done them. And especially you've got a bunch of things to do as chair to set up a meeting. Push folks to use that model. It works really nicely and you should encourage them to do so. But as to the second, I want to make sure that you all are clear and that everyone's clear that the current model of having people at the front talking to the room structurally makes it more unfair because you've got people who are seen as authority talking to the room. And yeah, if chairs don't allocate the number of table seats, there are going to be some people who want to be at the front table who are further back. They're still facing the middle. It's not preventing them from participating. It's less fun. But the way we've got it set up now, we've got document authors being seen as in charge. We've got chairs being seen as being in charge. We've got the few people up at the front who talk quietly with each other and the people in the back with their faces and their laptops. Push folks to use this model. It will break this idea of we use the meeting time to do presentations so that the authoritative people can continue to be seen as authoritative.
Thank you for that. I at least personally agree very much. With regards to the first comment, I think the IESG recognizes that, and we keep recommending that we try different things in the working groups, and we also recognize that that's a potentially a long process for people to learn and get suitable opportunity in their working group's life cycle to try that and so forth. So I think we're getting there.
So Jari, if I could just say something, so I was the one that led the discussion at the working group chairs lunch today. And I think the biggest thing that I was asking for two things from the working group chairs. One was for them to talk to each other about what they're doing in different working groups, and so that they can kind of compare and see what might work well. And I don't mean just in like setting up a room or something like that, although that that's 15% of the kinds of things that I think we're thinking of. The other, so talking to each other, and then thinking about what they need in order for working groups to be more effective. One of the points I made during the discussion was that we see a lot of meetings that don't use classroom style seating, but the working group, almost all the working groups do, not all, but a lot of them do. We're talking about things that are not one size fits all for, every working group is different. So things that work for big working groups don't work for small working groups. But I really wanted to thank Pete for raising the issue, and I would have said it using the word hierarchical. One of the things that really struck me when I came to the IETF in the first place was the idea that there's, no kings, no presidents. And having, every time we can send a message that we're not a hierarchy, I think that's a good thing. I would have thought that putting me on the ISG as an area director would have proved that the leadership are not see how that goes.
So, yes, we need to keep trying to do new things, and it's hard because we know how to do what we've been doing. Today in NVO3, we had 3 small group breakout sessions with pads of paper, and the room went from staring at their laptops and being rather apathetic, I'm afraid, to actually having some really good discussions. It still ends up being small, with facilitators, smaller groups of people talking, a number of people listening and learning, but the energy in the room completely changed. We have another meeting tomorrow to carry out the summaries and see how it went and all. But we had pads of paper, and there was a lot of ability to be more interactive. And I think the chairs and I were all very happy. So I'd really encourage talking to people who were in the meeting, or talking to the chairs and seeing what you can try, because it really can make a difference.
Margaret?
Margaret Cullen. I proposed a BOF for this meeting. And it's the first time I've proposed a BOF since I proposed the BOF for what became NetConf, I don't know, a long, long time ago. And when I proposed that BOF for NetConf, there was a very interesting discussion between the ISG and the IAB about that BOF, and I was present. They had the proponents of the BOF dialed into the call at the time that was discussed. But this one, I can tell because I've heard about it from multiple people, there was a very interesting discussion between the ISG and the IAB about my BOF, but I was not present. And I'm not like freaking out about this or anything, but I think it was better the other way. And I wonder if you guys want to comment on that and whether you think it might be possible to reinstate that sort of thing.
That's a good question and a good point, actually. I don't recall the NetConf time, or maybe I wasn't on the IST at the time, but
it was before I was on the ISG.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think we actually have multiple different things. So one is that we actually have to make a final determination that we had all these discussions, and then the ISG or the AD in question makes a decision with some help from the IAB, and that's the call that we're having. Now we're at least publishing the minutes from that call. Previously they were sort of, not so visible. But I kind of agree with you, but we used to have more discussions beforehand. We had a BOF, and then that proposal idea went, there was an email that went to the proponents and the relevant directorate and the ISG and the IAB, and we discussed it. And that, I think, is maybe something that we should do more. I sort of confess that that's not entirely well done today.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets a little bit to the issue we were just discussing, right? In that it's plausible that some of us, and I'm not saying myself in this particular case, but that some of the people who are proposing BOFs are more expert than anyone who's on the call when the ISG and IAB are on the call to discuss that topic. And it doesn't send that message that you believe that when it's discussed and decisions are made about it without those people present.
So Jari, if I could interject briefly, I believe that the BOF coordination call this time was tacked on to a formal telechat, which was open for anyone in the community to join. And I think what maybe Margaret was asking for is to, make sure that people that are BOF proponents know when that call is coming.
Well, just having it be open would be fine. I mean, they used to call you in when your thing was going to be discussed, which, meant you waited around, but I didn't mind waiting around. But an open call would be even better if people were informed when it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm just going to push back just a little bit, because I actually think that call is the wrong time to have, like a pre-BOF of the event. That the time would actually be before that. This is a call where you go through like 15 different things. And there's really no time to dwell into the details of each and every one, but we absolutely have to have that discussion with the proponents and people who think it's a bad idea, and the ISP and the ISG and the IAB. But I'm not sure that call is the right place. I do fundamentally agree that it needs to happen.
Yeah, I'm not saying there should be particular logistics, but if you guys could think about how to make those discussions happen again, or possibly they never happen for all BOFs, maybe they only happen for one IETF, I have no idea. I think that would be a good thing.
Benoit?
So I think it's a good idea to have more information from the proponents, but then I'm thinking, should we also invite the opponents then? And then shall we run into the risk of running the BOF at the call where we're just supposed to decide if we want a BOF or not? I don't have the answer, right? I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a whole bunch of them where you're just going to say yes, and the conversation will be very short. But clearly, there was a much longer conversation about this particular BOF, and it would have maybe been helpful to be present for it. That's all.
And Miriam, Suresh, and
So we also had calls where we invited proponents. If we don't do that, I believe that the area director who's responsible for that part has a good view on what the BOF is about and is able to answer all the questions, while the actual discussion between also the leadership, but also between the community and the proponents should happen in the BOF and not in that call. And because we all like to talk, sometimes the discussion goes a little bit more than it should be in that call, but actually the BOF should be the place to have the discussion.
Suresh, Joel, Spencer?
So one thing I would like to say is, right, when the BOF request is getting formed, like when the stuff is getting put into the wiki, the earlier you put the stuff in, the better it is for the IESG to do something. So if, let's say, some of the stuff comes in like a month before the deadline, it's easier to rotate. Like in this specific case, it came in an hour before the deadline, right? So there's really not that much iteration you could have done. I think that would be like a really, really good place to do this kind of talking before the call. And I agree with Jari, like there's too many things on the call. This time I think like there's like much less BOFs than last time, but last time we had like 15 things to discuss, and there's no way we can actually dedicate the time for the time the BOF discussion deserves on the call.
And Joel, and briefly, because we're half an hour over time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've done, simply because the workload is higher, is front-end loaded. So that means the call is sort of a coordination activity and to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. So it's too late at that point to have that discussion. So if we need to have that discussion, it has to happen earlier, and maybe we should break that out into small pieces.
And one of the criteria for accepting a BOF is that there's sufficient discussion on the mailing list about this topic, and that I think is maybe the primary thing. Spencer, one more comment on this.
I really like Suresh's suggestion about getting stuff to us early. I could imagine us having conversations about BOFs that we have a lot of questions about, even on our an informal telechat or something like that before the BOF cutoff. If we see something and we have questions, it really is a the BOF cutoff is on Friday, and like by the next Monday, and by the next Thursday, we're making decisions. And if we have 10 BOFs on the call, we're not spending a lot of time on each one. But I like the idea of us being more open. And we used to do a lot more. The IESG used to do a lot more stuff that was closed. The closed stuff for us now is mostly personnel related.
Margaret, we're done, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you. We will do something on this and try to make sure that we are as transparent as possible. Maybe not on the call, but somehow. And then I'll close the mics, but 2 more questions here.
Yeah, Jelinkova, just coming back to the previous topic of getting people more involved during the session. Ali, a question to you. When you did this experiment today, do you have any feedback from remote participants?
I did get feedback pretty immediately from some folks in the room who were like, this is so much better, thank you. And I continue to get some of that feedback. A lot of the folks who I tried to ask how it was going afterwards had gotten too deep into the technical conversation to be able to disengage to talk about the format, which was a complete change that I regard as quite useful. Yeah, exactly, because they were actually engaged in the technical conversation, which is part of what I was trying to force. I don't think that the small group discussion is right for all working groups all the time. It was the right thing for this working group at this time, and just like what one size fits all, but trying things is really key.
Stuart, last word.
Stuart Bryan. So Margaret raised an interesting point about getting the technical expertise on the BOF calls. Maybe the IESG should experiment with allowing authors to speak during complicated document discussions, because the authors will have a lot of knowledge about the content of their document.
Yeah, we do that.
We do.
We do, even
No,
when you were on the ISG.
No. You can listen,
No,
but it's
you-
very,
No.
very
We can-
rare that you can speak.
We invite them to
authors and
participate.
shepherds. Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes. We invite authors and shepherds to speak on the calls when it seems
Oh,
appropriate.
it's changed then, okay.
And we even invite them on the informal telechats at times to give larger presentations in advance of being on a formal telechat.
Oh, that's really, really great. I mean, I've never not
But both.
experienced it. It's really great that you've moved forward to do that. Thank you.
And of course, we also have sort of made our calls quite short in these days, that they are, rather than the actual substantive discussion, because substantive discussion goes to the working group mailing list, where everybody can participate, whether their time zone is this or that, and so forth. So I think that's the right model. But yes, that's important. So thank you. I think this is it. Apologies for taking a little bit longer than planned. I did want to say one thing about this NAT64 IETF idea, and I at least heard here that there's plenty of people who are interested in working on that. So let's get together. I'm also personally interested. Let's get together, make a plan, and just a plan. Let's start doing the steps and see what kind of incremental change we have ready for the next IETF, and then after that. Thank you.
Thank you all.